A loaded episode of Real GM Radio for you today. Giannis traded to the Miami Heat. We've got our winners and losers from the deal. Plus, Nathan Grubel from No Ceilings joins me to talk about our favorite players in tonight's NBA draft. Let's jump in. All right, really excited for today's episode. Nathan Grubel from No Ceilings does an awesome job over there, as does the entire No Ceilings gang, of covering the NBA draft. We are talking all things NBA draft, what we think is going to happen in the top four, and then we're going to get to our guys, the guys who we love watching and are rooting for in this class, and that we're a little bit higher on than consensus. But before we get to that, I am recording this on Tuesday morning, right after Giannis gets traded to the Miami Heat. Look, we've been talking about this for months now. The speculation, the rumors were going crazy. And finally, we got the deal done. 10 minutes before midnight Eastern time, the deal gets announced there. Giannis to the Heat. Full details of the trade. The Heat get Giannis and Bobby Portis. They absorb Bobby Portis into a trade exception that they had created by trading Duncan Robinson to Detroit last season. That's going to hard cap the Heat. There at the first apron. The Heat send Milwaukee Tyler Herro, Kel'el Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kasparas Jakucionis, and 3 first-round picks if you include the 13th pick in tonight's draft, and then a picks in 2031, 2033, and they also have a pick swap in 2030, and then a future second-round pick. So these were the terms of the deal, and I'm going to just jump right into my winners and losers of this trade. And right away, the clear winner, the Miami Heat. They get Giannis. You get the best player in the draft. Later on this week with Mike Shearer, I'm going to talk about we're going to do our power rankings of the top 20 players in the league going into next season. I still have Giannis top 5. And I had him there before he got traded to my hometown Miami Heat. I understand it wasn't a great year for him. 36 games played. I get it. But he probably could have played more if the Bucks had not given up on their season. It was a weird year for him. And when he was out there, and I remind people of this all the time, December, January, this guy was still playing at an MVP level. Look at the NBA.com MVP ladder, all these things. That Giannis was very much a part of that while the season still mattered for Milwaukee. And because he had lifted the Bucks to a decent enough record, they weren't very good, but they were going to be able to compete for a play-in or a playoff spot before they really just went the other way on their season. So I still think Giannis is a top 5 guy. He shot over 62% from the field last year. A couple, like his mid-range shot just wasn't really the same, wasn't going in as much as it was 2 years ago, but he has developed over the last few years a decent mid-range shot. He has really given up on the 3, which I'm fine with. But if he's got like that little mid-range jumper, getting to the rim at the way that he does, defensively he has slid a little bit, but also the Bucks overall have slid defensively. The same infrastructure that was around Giannis when they won the championship a few years ago, with Drew Holiday at the point of attack, Brook Lopez in his prime, defending the rim as a drop center defender, having Chris Middleton on the wing, like all these great defenders, those guys were either aged out or traded away for various parts, right? You replace essentially Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday with Damian Lillard and Kyle Kuzma over the last couple of years. Yeah, you're not going to be as good defensively. Brook Lopez aged out. So I think with a better infrastructure, which Miami certainly has, we could talk about what the Heat's roster looks like and whether or not they're a contender. There's no question that this is going to be an elite defense. You've got Giannis and Bam Adebayo. Find me a better front court defensively in the league, right? If you want to just say Victor Wembanyama and San Antonio because Victor Wembanyama's there, fine, okay. But as a duo, there's nobody better defensively than Bam and Giannis. Plus, you've got Davion Mitchell still there. They're going to try to retain Andrew Wiggins here. We'll see what happens with that. And you got Erik Spoelstra. And one thing, if you're going Miami, like Erik Spoelstra is always just going to get a little bit more out of you defensively than most coaches do. And you talk to players who have come through that Heat organization, and they're like, we're doing defensive drills in October, like way before anybody else is doing this stuff. If you stop by the facility in the summer to just work on your game, and a coach is there, they're going to run you through defensive drills. They're just going to, that's just the way that organization operates. I think defensively he'll be right back to where he was. Maybe not like defensive player of the year, but where he was at, right, at almost his most elite level. So I think in getting Giannis, you're getting a really great player. Now you're gonna have to sign him to this extension when we get into July. Probably the last year or two of that extension going to be a little rough But you make this trade understanding that and realizing, okay, we've been a play-in team for 4 years in a row, didn't even make the playoffs last year. We had to shake things up. And now we have a top 5 player in the NBA, a legitimate MVP candidate, the best player that's been through here since LeBron left in 2014. We had to make this move, and now we're relevant again. And looking at that roster, I think people keep calling it Milwaukee South. I do not see it that way. Maybe that's not surprising. But, Bam is a better teammate than Giannis has had in a long time. And now you're moving Bam into a secondary role. He's also, by the way, another big winner in this trade. I'm not going to do a big thing on Bam, but the fact that now he's not going to be asked to score 30 points per game because Giannis is just going to go out and do that. Now Bam can just do what he's great at, which is play defense, be a complimentary role player offensively, rebound, pass the ball around, and just kind of be the culture guy there. Great fit for Bam. I think the reputation around Bam is going to flip this next season. We're going to look at him as maybe one of the better number 2 options in the league. I think that's my prediction for Bam this year. Big winner there. But you got Giannis, you got Bam. Try to retain Wiggins. We'll see if they're going to be able to bring back Norman Powell. Wiggins can either opt out and sign at a lower dollar figure. Maybe they find a place to salary dump Nikola Jovic and his $16 million, and that gives them a little bit more wiggle room. Right now, there's just not a lot of space between where they are now and that first apron that they're going to be hard capped at. But they're going to try to bring back Powell, and if not, they have the mid-level exception that they can use $15 million. If Powell walks away, you can use most or all of that, depending on some of these other things that happen. And there's some decent players out there. It looks like Ayo Dosunmu was going to go back to Minnesota after they salary dumped Julius Randle, but Powell's really good, but can you replace him with a cheaper like Anthony Simons or a Colin Sexton or something like that? That could make some sense to me. Miami is going to go out and find some shooters. But right now, you got Davion Mitchell, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, and Giannis. That's the backbone of an elite defense and like a grinded out type of team that Erik Spoelstra is going to want to coach. And that's my next big winner is Erik Spoelstra here. This guy has had to coach and make the most out of these teams for such a long time that just were so deficient in talent compared to the rest of the teams in the Eastern Conference. And I'm including the Jimmy Butler era only because Jimmy Butler during the regular season wasn't playoff Jimmy, right? Those are 2 different Jimmy Butlers. Look at Jimmy's stats during the regular season during his time in Miami the last few years. He was Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris stats in the regular season. Michael Jordan in the playoffs sometimes. Erik Spoelstra is going to have and it's great. And by the way, I don't even like Jimmy was great for the Heat. When he needed to be great, he was great. He was just a different kind of player than Giannis, right? He wasn't this physical freak. Like Jimmy Butler was a basketball IQ guy, really strong, athletic in his own way. But Giannis is the most gifted physical athlete the Heat have had since they got LeBron. And Erik Spoelstra coached LeBron, and I thought did a really great job coaching that team, the inverted offense, pace and space, all that stuff that really was a big part of laying the foundation for what the NBA has become over the last decade and a half. They were kind of at the forefront of that. It was the Phoenix Suns, and then I would say it was the Phoenix Suns with the 6 seconds or less with Steve Nash and Stoudemire in that group. And then you had the Heat with the big 3. After that first year, figuring out playing Bosh at the 5, that inverted offense, pace and space, all that stuff. And then you obviously had the Warriors going small with Draymond at the 5, and that kind of really pushed us into the Houston Rockets and Morey Ball and everything like that. But the Heat are very much part of that timeline, that evolutionary chain, I would say. But that was a very young Erik Spoelstra. This is a much older, more experienced, better, smarter Erik Spoelstra who has not had this kind of tool in his tool shed in a really long time. I am really excited to see what Spo draws up for Giannis because he's been thinking about it. What can we do with a guy like Giannis? They might have been thinking about this in February when they thought that they were close to getting Giannis. So the Heat ran that up-tempo system, no ball screen system. I think Giannis fits great in that kind of system. I'd be very interested to see if that's what they continue to do here. But Spo, obviously a big winner now because he gets to. This is a great toy to play with now in Giannis. Another winner, the Milwaukee Bucks. I think they're winners here. It's a weird way to win. It's a roundabout way to win. It's probably not the game they wanted to win. But all in all, I think they got a pretty decent package back. They had almost no leverage in this trade, found a way to play Miami and Boston off of each other to create a little bit of leverage here. 2 franchises that do not want to lose to each other at anything. And in doing that, you get, when you trade Giannis, you're never going to get equal value or anything close to it, especially And why I kind of thought the Bucks were losers in most of this was because, look, when you play out the string with Giannis the way that you did, this is the risk you take. You run the risk of losing leverage. Giannis, eligible to sign an extension, 1 year left, eligible to become a free agent in 2027. He's going to have leverage here, and you're not. Had you traded him a year or 2 years ago, you would have had a lot more leverage in these trades. You could have shopped him anywhere, the way that Portland shopped Damian Lillard and sent him to Milwaukee and got the package that they thought they wanted. But when you play this out and do the Damian Lillard wave and stretch and go all in for Miles Turner and all that kind of stuff, look, I understand desperately trying to cling on to Giannis, the greatest player in franchise. I get it, but this is all, there's a risk reward to it. You don't get to have both. You don't get to play it out to the very end and also get the kind of package that you would normally get if you would have traded Giannis either in his prime or when he still had years under contract. So I thought the way that the Bucks handled this, they were kind of losers, but until the very end where they managed to find a way to play Miami and Boston off of each other, and they got a swap out of Miami, and then I think one of the other sticking points was Kasparas Jakucionis. I do not think the Heat wanted to move him. I think they liked Jakucionis' potential fit with Giannis. I think they liked the fact that he's a bigger guard, and those guys tend to be very valuable these days, but they got him. They got him in the deal. So I do think you look at what the Bucks ended up getting. I think this was the right package. I think this was better than a Jaylen Brown package. Jaylen Brown to me just never made sense for Milwaukee. It's like, okay, you're going to get him, good player, but you don't have any assets to build around Jaylen Brown. And everybody kept saying, well, you flip Jaylen Brown to another team and get more assets. I think if the Bucks thought that deal was out there right now, they would have done that. But I don't think that deal was out there. I don't think the Clippers wanted to move 5 for Jaylen Brown. I don't think Atlanta wants to move 8 for Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's really expensive. He'll be 30 by the time next season starts. And it's just hard to absorb those kinds of contracts. So had that deal been out there to flip Jaylen to a third team, they probably do it, right? Instead, they get the smorgasbord from the Heat. Ware is a nice young player. Jaquez is a good player. Jakucionis is a good player who was thought of as a consensus top 10 guy before he slid last year. And you get the draft picks, and you get 13 in this draft. And I do think that there's a possibility that Milwaukee packages 10 and 13 and moves up in this draft and finds a guy that they're targeting. The other winner here is Giannis. I think the Miami Heat are a perfect organization for him. You could tell me that he's not walking into a team that's a championship contender turnkey. Okay, you're probably right. That's not really the point. Giannis is not looking to be Kevin Durant 2.0. He doesn't want to be doing this every couple of years, jumping from team to team. You saw how hard this was for Giannis to leave one team. He doesn't want to do this again. He's looking for his forever team. And if you're Giannis, I understand why you looked at Miami and Boston and said, these are two front offices with decades-long track records of putting their stars in position to chase titles. I trust these two front offices. So Giannis ultimately gets to where he wants to go. I think the Heat gave up a lot for Giannis, but not so much that they gutted the team. I still think they're going to be able to build around Giannis. They kept their second-best player, and now their second-best player in Bam. They're going to be able to potentially retain Wiggins and Powell. We'll see how it works. Davion Mitchell makes a lot of sense as a guy next to Giannis. Like, there's good stuff here. I think Giannis finds himself in a big market in Miami, international market. Miami, I've been arguing for a couple of years now, I think is the international sports capital of the world. It's not the, and don't get me wrong, I don't think it's the best sports city, right, in America. That's not what I'm saying, right? Like, you could look at Chicago and New York and be like, those are better sports. Okay, fine. You want to do the fair weather fan thing to me? Okay, I think it's a little overstated, but whatever. There is some truth to it. But as an international sports market, I think it's number one. Every major sports team in America is represented in South Florida, in Miami. The Florida Panthers play in Broward, but close enough. You've got Messi playing for Inter Miami, biggest soccer player in the world. You've got an F1 race now that's wildly successful. You've got tennis and golf all over the place. It is the international sports capital of the world. And for Giannis, who I think is still, it's him and Wemby, the international faces, like the faces of international basketball, this makes a lot of sense for Giannis to be here. So I think this is a big winner for him on and off the court. Another winner, really quick, Shams Charania. Congrats, Shams. Bucks fans can't say anything to you now. You were right the entire time. Another winner, Tyler Herro. Tyler gets to go to Milwaukee. After years and years and years of being in trade rumors, he ends up on his hometown team. Maybe they end up flipping him later this summer or at the trade deadline. But for right now, Tyler Herro, who has a Milwaukee Brewers tattoo on his body, gets to go back home, play in Milwaukee, kind of get his own team for a little while. Not his own team, because I don't think Tyler's like a guy who gets his own team, but gets to put up a bunch of shots, and I think, play some pick and roll, Kel'el Ware, and maybe Miles Turner sticks around. I don't know. Like, good for Tyler Herro. You finally remove yourself from all the trade rumors. And if you were going to get traded, what a better I can't really think of a better place to get traded to. Another winner, Pat Riley's legacy, man. It had been 6 years since he had traded for Jimmy Butler, and in those 6 years, 7 years, all that time, swinging and missing on Donovan Mitchell, Kevin Durant a couple of different times, Giannis in the February deadline, Giannis and Damian Lillard, obviously. It was getting rough there for Pat Riley, and Heat fans got accustomed to saying that he was maybe asleep at the wheel and things like that. This is a huge win for Pat Riley and his legacy. 80 years old. This might be the last shot at building something that matters and chasing a championship. Loser, Boston Celtics. Self-explanatory, right? But I think the bigger loser out of this is Jaylen Brown, who now has found himself in trade rumors. And the Celtics are losers because now it's awkward, right, between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And it feels like the Celtics probably have to trade Jaylen Brown. And they lose a little bit of leverage here because now everybody feels like maybe you have to trade Jaylen Brown. Now, we'll see. I don't doubt that Boston would just bring Jaylen Brown back if they thought that they weren't getting a good deal. I don't think the Celtics would just move him to move him. But it would be weird. It's going to be awkward in that locker room, right? I know Jaylen Brown has dealt with this before in 2022 when he was offered for Kevin Durant, but this is different, man. Jaylen Brown was not a champion then, not a finals MVP then, not a guy who got MVP votes then. He just did all of those things and then was told, and by the way, you're not good enough in a one-for-one offer for Giannis. After all of that. Like, Jaylen Brown's got to be feeling some type of way about all this. Like, you don't want to be in trade rumors, but if I'm going to be in trade rumors, obviously you're going to want me. Nope. We prefer the smorgasbord to the poo-poo platter from the Miami Heat. Jaylen Brown's ego has to take a little bit of a hit here, doesn't it? So we'll see what the Celtics do here. I'm going to end it there. I'm going to a ton more thoughts on Giannis in Miami, where the Boston Celtics go from here. But we have plenty of time to do all of that for now. That's my opening monologue here on Real GM Radio. Coming up next, Nathan Grubel, No Ceilings. We're talking NBA draft. Enjoy. All right, I'm here with Nathan Grubel over from No Ceilings. They do an awesome job covering all things NBA draft. Go check out their NBA draft guide. We'll link to it in the show notes ahead of Tuesday night's draft. Nathan, I've talked to you before. You've done a ton of work on this draft. I'm so excited to talk about it with you, but I don't want to do like who's the best player in this draft. I don't want to talk about like the mock draft or what you think is going to happen at 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever you think. I want to talk about our favorite guys in this draft. I like to do this every year. It's the My Guys draft. And you and I are very different in the sense that you are an NBA draft expert and I am not. But I do love the NBA draft. I dive in around this time of year. You're diving in all year round. I like to form my opinions kind of scattershot, where you're kind of, I'm sure you're making your own board. I don't make a board. I find guys that I like. I talk about them. I fall in love with them. And sometimes I'm right. Some of my guys in the past have been Tyrese Halliburton, right?
There you go.
Some of my other guys in the past have been Josh Giddey. It's hit or miss, right?
Yeah.
It's, you can kind of go either way. I think my track record, though, is pretty good in terms of identifying guys that I like and just talking about them, buying some stock in them, and following them throughout their careers. So we're going to go back and forth. We're going to just talk about some of our guys in this draft. Doesn't mean that they're the best players in this draft. Just means they're prospects that we like, that we have a good feel for, who we're excited to watch at the next level. Before we get to that, though, Nathan, I do want to ask you about the top of this draft, because we have gotten reports now that, hey, maybe it is Darren Peterson who could potentially go number 1 here instead of AJ DeBansa. I don't want to ask you what you think will happen, because who knows, but what do you think, like, if you were the Wizards, like, it's been DeBansa sort of in Sharpie for so many of these mock drafts, all this entire process. Why do you think they are looking at Peterson? Do you think they should be looking at Peterson very seriously?
To be honest with you, Wes, I feel like, I know you said you wouldn't ask me like what I think's going to happen, but like I would be stunned at this point if it wasn't AJ DeBansa, to be honest with you. That doesn't mean they shouldn't be looking at Darren Peterson, because he's a special prospect in his own right. Like I just published on social media the day that we're doing this, like my official tier breakdown of these guys, which I do tiers a little bit differently in the sense of I'm just not like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 every single year. Like I have a specific system. Tier 1 guys I view as like MVP caliber prospects, tier 2 all NBA caliber prospects, tier 3 all-star, on and on and on. And these are based on upside. I don't always have a tier 1 grade on a player every single year. I have 3 this year. I did end up with AJ, Darren, and Cameron Boozer all in that top tier. So this is about as close of a race to the top as I've seen in recent years. So them doing their due diligence and homework on guys like Darren Peterson and Cam Boozer doesn't surprise me in the slightest. I think in terms of how this roster is constructed and the way that it's put together, I think AJ DeBansa makes a lot of sense just based around, again, a lot of guys, multi-position players, versatile in their roles on both ends of the floor. I think AJ can do a lot of those things while also being that downhill force that this team doesn't really have a lot of at a high level. Like the most comparable player on this roster to doing some of the things that AJ can do out of the pick and roll and being that downhill threat is Bilal Coulibaly, who isn't nearly as polished of a pick and roll handler as someone like AJ is coming in. So I think he makes the most sense for what they want to do. But Darren's floor as someone who is an elite shooter, add volume, can make plays on the defensive end, 6'6" in shoes with a 6'10" wingspan. That's about as safe of a floor as you're going to get in the NBA as far as, utilizing a guy and what his strengths are and what they actually mean on an NBA court. So I don't disparage the Wizards from looking at all these different directions and all these guys, but I would be stunned if it wasn't AJ.
Who's in that next tier?
I have Caleb Wilson as a tier 2 guy. So it's really by himself. Yeah. So it's really like the top of this draft is so clumped together. I think what separates those 3 guys from Caleb, it's not that Caleb, I couldn't see him getting there. I think it's just a little bit more to ask for him from the sense of, having the ball in his hands and commanding it and running offense through him in the same ways as you would those other 3 guys, which is why I view them just a smidge higher than Caleb. But Caleb is still an unbelievable prospect and could probably go number 1 overall in a bunch of different drafts that we could do over the course of NBA history. So I still view him very highly, even though there is a slight quote unquote tier break for me between him and the other 3.
If I could throw Peterson, DeBansa, Boozer, Flag, Harper, and let's throw Knipple in there.
Okay.
I know I just threw a lot of names at you. You can ask me to repeat them if you want.
No. I got it.
How would you order
the
those
ranking?
guys? Yeah.
I would have Cooper Flag number 1.
Okay.
I would have Cameron Boozer number 2 because he's number 1 on my board this year. I would have AJ DeBansa number 3. I'd have Dylan Harper number 4. And then I would have Darren Peterson, then Knipple. That's how I would rank these guys just based on how I viewed them as prospects. But that Harper DeBansa one, that's very, very close. I could also understand anyone doing this exercise who would have Dylan Harper number 2, like right behind Cooper, maybe even number 1, just because of what we just saw in the finals. Like
sure.
His leap, Wes, like as a defender this year was probably what surprised me the most. Like a lot of the things on offense, we knew how much of a downhill force he was. Was much more optimistic in the jumper as some people were, like immediately coming in. But defensively, I thought he would be good on defense. But like what he was with San Antonio this year was outstanding.
Yep.
And I think that so early on top of peeling back all these different layers from a shooting perspective and as an off the dribble shot maker, like he has a much higher ceiling than I think even I anticipated. And I was really, really high on him coming out last year.
I'm with you. I loved Harper coming out of the draft. He was a little bit too one-dimensional for me though at Rutgers in terms of some of his dribble moves. I'm like, if they take away the left side of the basket, like what are they really gonna, stuff like that. And he was like, nope, doesn't matter. He's awesome. He just figured it all out right away. And I love that, and that's the kind of thing that we can all watch the film and stuff, but then it's very hard to figure out a player's ceiling and things like that, which kind of gets in, maybe kind of leads us into our conversation about my guys. One of the things. And I'll ask you the same question, but one of the things that I always look for is feel. And it's very hard to figure it out. It's a very much in the eye of the beholder type of thing. But if I watch you and I just feel like you know what the game is, like you have a good basketball feel, basketball IQ, whatever you want to call it. But I kind of like to call it feel because I think you can teach basketball IQ in some ways, right? You could show a player pictures and then they get smarter and they get better as time goes on. I don't think you can really teach feel. And I just think about I always think about it this way. LeBron is amazing, right? Maybe the greatest player of all time. And when a lot of people just say, oh, he's just bigger, stronger, faster than everybody, I'm like, no. There's been a lot of 6'9", 250 guys to come into the draft and look just like LeBron James. None of them were LeBron. The thing that separated LeBron, I mean, there's a lot of things. He's incredibly skilled and all these other things, but his basketball feel is just absolutely elite. And it's the thing that you can't teach. It's the thing that's the ultimate separator. If you're 6'2", if you're 6'9", if you're 7'5", it doesn't matter. You got to have the feel. And to hit that like highest level of elite player. And that's kind of what I always look for. And those end up being the guys that I fall in love with. But when you what's like your thing just in general? Do you have like a weak spot? Do you have like a thing that you always look for? Do you have a weakness for certain kinds of guys?
I would say my weakness as a talent evaluator doesn't always apply to like the top of the draft, but I would say the thing that I've somehow underrated every single year on my board is like the older, tougher, stronger types of players who already have the frame. They're already kind of physically filled out. I may have a thing or two about their skill that I don't necessarily like, but like they already come in, they know that they obviously fit physically on the court. And I kind of just underestimate the ceiling at which they can get to. Like that guy for me this year, I don't know if we'll be discussing him today or not, but like Josh Jefferson at Iowa State, for example, is a guy that I feel like I've ranked dangerously low on my board. And I'm just like up at night every single night leading up to the draft. Like I really wanted to move him up higher. I don't know how I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to leapfrog him ahead of some of these other guys that I really like, but I have him at like 31 on my board. I could make a case if I was more confident about Jefferson's shooting, even with the athletic things that hold me back in terms of having a higher grade on him. Like if he was like a 35% shooter over multiple seasons in college, I could have like a top 20 grade on him, but we're going to see how that works. But in terms of why I like him as a prospect, he does a lot of things that I like in terms of being able to handle the ball, being able to, you can run a little bit of offense through him in the half court. You can grab a rebound, push the break in transition, and he can play in different spots on the court defensively. Like in theory, that sounds like a really good player. Just is he athletic enough to pull off some of those same moves that he did in college? And then when the play breaks down, gets kicked over to him, he has to shoot it. Is he going to be able to make a high enough percentage of those shots? But like physically, he looks the part completely of an NBA forward who can come in. You can plug him right now into a lineup at the 4 spot. But that's been my biggest weakness I've found, through the years as an evaluator.
So Joshua Jefferson was like deep on my board of guys, so I'm glad we knocked him out of the way. But I'm with you. Like, so one of the things that I'm finding that I'm evaluating at like higher now is just strength. I'm watching these finals and the player, thinking about the teams and the players that go far and are most impactful. We were at a point a few years ago where wingspan was like the most underrated, sort of market discrepancy. And you think about some of the teams that were on the forefront of drafting at wingspan as opposed to just height. And I think strength is the next thing. When you just see guys like Alex Caruso, doesn't even matter how big he is, just pushing guys off their spots. When you see guys like Dylan Harper, who can just bulldoze through the paint, strength is becoming such an important thing for playoff basketball in particular, that if you grade out as one of the strongest guys at the combine, I'm gonna take another look at you if I'm a team.
Yeah.
Like I just have to at this point.
I like that for sure. And it's a funny thing to try and pick apart before the draft, because I think it comes in different shapes and sizes. And I think a lot of times we equate it to body type. Like what does a player's frame look like? Do they have those wide shoulders? Do they have, a good firm base, or do they have like a narrow base that suggests that they're just going to be skinny for forever, right? If they are going to be skinny, can they be wiry strong? Can they be like that Kevin Durant type where they always have a thin frame, but they're also one of the stronger guys of their position and stronger than you give them credit for? Like how are they able to add to their body and progress throughout their career? And then it's always interesting to also see those guys who maybe didn't look the same, after the draft as opposed to pre-draft. Like they come in all of a sudden at Summer League, they look like they're 15, 20 plus pounds heavier, like in the blink of an eye. Like what does that do for their body? Like, are they able to physically hold up carrying that much more weight added in such a short period of time? Like it's such a very interesting thing to try to parse through. But I agree with you completely, Wes. Like what we saw in these playoffs with the whistle kind of being held a little bit more, and it was one of the most interesting things.
I got one of my weak spots before we get into our guys here, and this is my definite weakness. I fall in love with one of these guys every single year, is the irrational confidence scoring guard. I find one every single year where I'm like, nothing about this player says winning player, like winning basketball player. This guy looks incredibly selfish, and I'm like, God, I kind of want to watch this guy play more basketball games. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I think it's like this roller coaster, chaotic entertainment value thing. I don't know that I necessarily always want these players on my team, but I always kind of like fall in love because all these players, the contrarian in me ends up. I think some of these players get labeled as maybe selfish or, maybe like a black hole on offense or whatever it might be, right? A ball hog, and I'm just like, no, he's misunderstood. Like, give him a chance, right? Like, the contrarian in me wants to like almost take these kind of guys under my wing. So I always find one every single year.
Although I think there's two of those guys in this draft who I think people have talked themselves into or out of for different reasons. I think Darius Acuff out of Arkansas is one near the top. And then I think Ibuka Okori out of Stanford is another one who might be a little misunderstood because you look at his assists per game and it's like a little just over 3. And you're like, well, what separates him? Like, can he be a high-level passer if he's not averaging 6, 7, 8 assists per game in college? And I think context matters a lot in that regard. Like, that Stanford team, offensive talent around Okori was not there. He had to do a lot for his team to even have a chance to win games. And then it's another one of these, funny things where in order to get an assist, the guy on the other end has to actually make the shot. And like, you go back and watch Okori's tape at Stanford, he actually made a few more impressive passes than I think he was given credit for. So it's one of those things where you look at him and just his play type, he's this shifty water bug type scoring guard who knows how to get wherever he wants to on the court. And maybe because he can get to those spots, it's more of an advantage for the team for him to take that shot versus somebody else. But I would invite anyone who has that type of criticism for someone like an Okori, for example, to go back and watch a lot of the tape. And then I could say the same thing about a player like Acuff. Like, Darius Acuff has some of the best passing chops in this class. He just didn't do it as often as the highlights for the player, for example, would indicate. Like, when you think about Acuff, you think about how clutch he was for that Arkansas team down the stretch of so many games. And a lot of that was from his deep shot making ability, not setting somebody up for a pass. But you go back and dig through the film and you saw a lot of awesome alley-oop plays from him. You saw the cross court, the skip passes. Like, Acuff has a little bit of everything in his bag offensively. I think he's the most complete offensive guard in this class. And passing's obviously a big part of it, making other players better, not just playing offense around what best suits you. So I think those two guys jump out to me as like probably your irrational scoring guards who deserve a little bit more credit in other areas.
So Acuff is obviously thought of as like a top 7 type pick here.
Yep.
So when I was thinking about Okori. That was the guy. He's got like a I don't know, a seriousness is the right word. Like he's just got like a killer mindset kind of mentality that I always fall in love with.
Yeah.
I love the change of speed stuff. That always pops out. That's going to be a big thing when I talk about one of the other guys on my board that's going to go higher in the draft probably. But Okori is like that. I don't know if he's going to be big enough ultimately, and I don't care. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I like him. I like watching him, and I'm going to root for him at the next level, and I hope it works out for him.
I think 6'8" wingspan helps with that, Wes. He may not be like have a lot of pounds on his frame per se, but those smaller guys who have those massive wingspans are generally the types of players who end up working out, whether they're stars or they're just really good rotational players like a Deuce McBride, for example.
Yeah, he's like a McBride, a Colin Sexton type. Like I could see him kind of playing one of those guys, which good player, All right, let's get into my guys. I have my guys. You have your guys, which would be my guys for you. I'm going to throw to you first. Give me one of your guys.
I'll be a little selfish, and I am going to take one of the guys at the top of the draft. I didn't necessarily give you the heads up, but I am just going to say Cameron Boozer. Like, I got to plant my flag on one of those top 3 guys, and I planted my flag on Boozer from before the cycle started in the preseason all the way to now. He's 6'9", 250 pounds. He just does everything on offense that I want a modern basketball player to do. He's a problem solver. He's a mismatch hunter. He is not just the prototypical, I'm going to post you up and bully ball 10 to 20 times per game. He will end up in the post. He will find guys that he is most better suited mismatching and posting up. But he's not just, I'm going to throw you on an opposing big and let you go to work, and that's who he is. He's much more skilled than that. He's been more skilled than that since he was in high school. I watched him play in person when he was 15 years old, and he's one of the most impressive prospects I've seen in 15 years doing this, like full stop. Like the stuff that he was doing at 15, he's gotten even better at now. Like when I wrote a piece for No Ceilings NBA years ago about after when I saw him that young, I thought the best thing that he could do to improve his game and become more perimeter oriented like he wanted to be was continuing to improve his ball handling. Well, he's done that. He can handle the ball with both hands. He can make passes with both hands. You can utilize him in one-on-one actions. You can utilize him in pick and roll as the ball handler or the screener. You can spot him up from beyond three. Talked about the post-up ability. He can just do everything, and his game is built around his mind being his superpower. He's an unbelievable processor, quick decision maker. He just knows how to make everyone else around him better, and that is the type of basketball player that I want on my team. Not someone who's just looking to make themselves better, but someone who will actually improve the other core pieces of my roster and allow them to become the best versions of themselves. Give me Cam Boozer every day.
I love Cam Boozer. Local guy, Christopher Columbus High School. Shout out Miami. My co-host on Locked On Heat went to that high school, so we talk about Cam Boozer quite a bit.
Yep.
You're not going to find any Cam Boozer hate here. Like I don't know where you're maybe in North Carolina, UNC fans, but like that's it. Like this guy is. You said all the things that I would say about him. I'm going to tell you, I was so happy when I saw that report that the Wizards are considering DeBansa or Peterson, because I hope so badly. I want to see Cam Boozer in Utah. I don't know what's going to happen. That to me is such an interesting fit from a basketball perspective. If he's going to be able to run, we'll see what happens with Walker Kessler, restricted free agent. But they've got Lauri Markkanen, likely, unless they want to trade him this summer, which potentially they could. They just traded for Jaren Jackson Jr. The idea of Boozer running a 4-5, 4-4, 3-4, like whatever positions we want to give these guys, pick and roll with Markkanen on a pick and pop or Jackson on the roll and him. I just think there's so much interesting things to be done on a basketball court with Boozer in Utah with a coach like Hardy. I don't want him in Washington. And I do not want him in Memphis. I want him on a team with other talent around him, because what you said about him bringing everybody around him, making them better, Utah's got that talent, and I think they need that connect. Markkanen's awesome. He's not a connective piece. He's a play finisher, not a play starter. Jaren Jackson Jr., Memphis dabbled in. He's a play finisher, not a play starter. Keontae George, I was one of my guys, by the way. I loved Keontae George.
He should be rooting so hard for someone like Boozer to end up there, because that's just another big guy that you can utilize off those double screen actions and just free him up for open shots. Absolutely.
It'll allow Ace Bailey to just kind of orbit, in a way that I think really accentuates Ace Bailey's strengths. I just think the basketball fit is so freaking good. If they want to take one of the guard, if they want to take DeBansa or Peterson, whoever ends up, I get it. Like, those guys are awesome. I'm very much rooting for Boozer to end up in Utah, because it's such a great basketball fit.
He can fit anywhere. I will say about Utah in particular, not that I don't think Cam would fit there well, because I think Cam can fit anywhere. That's just part of the appeal of him as a player. I think what might be best for the Jazz, but more importantly, what's best for the prospect, I think that's Darren Peterson's best landing spot, because of how Utah utilizes players and runs offense. They ran the third fewest ball screens per game last year. And that's my biggest question mark with Peterson right early in his career, is if he's thrown into the fire as this point guard right off the bat, those pick and roll sets, him having the ball in his hands all the time, that's where I have the most questions with him. But if he's able to be utilized in this free-flowing offensive structure where Will Hardy's so good at getting these guys open shots, I wonder if you bring him along slowly in that regard. He has somebody next to him like Keontae George to do more of that, high pick and roll, handle more of the offense from that perspective. And then as Darren continues to grow and get more comfortable within NBA offense, then you start to realize, oh, now we have, the this turn, my turn kind of backcourt and Keontae and Darren that can really take you places along with the other pieces on that team. I think that's his best fit in particular.
I hadn't considered that. I think you might be right. I like the Washington fit for him too, playing off of Trae Young, kind of be able to play on and off, if you stagger their minutes together.
Sure.
But Peterson's my guy. I told you I had a guy at the top of the draft. I surprised myself with this. And I'll tell you why. Boozer, I love. Miami guy. I already told you I love him.
Yep.
Everything about AJ DeBansa, everything about that guy's personality is right up my alley. Like, that is the kind of guy. I fell in love with Anthony Edwards, another one of my guys. DeBansa gets a lot of that kind of stuff. I love how chill he is in interviews, like how the confidence that he has. That stuff matters to me. He seems like a leader. All that stuff, like, he wants to be great. I love all that competitive stuff. I love his game. I love, like, we were just talking about strength. Super strong. Yeah. Right? Like, there's nothing about, like, he's going to get to the free throw line. He's going to get bigger. The guy looks like he's 27 years old already.
So two of our guys at No Ceilings, Corey and Albert, were out in LA to watch DeBansa work out in person. And he was like one of the most impressive workouts that they were talking about that they'd seen. Like he was playing like 1-on-4 on offense and just like pushing guys out of the way and just like going through everyone like it was nothing. Like that.
I love it.
That's special at 6'9".
And again, I keep ending up drawn to Peterson, and I can't figure out why, because his personality is like the opposite of the guys that I fall in love with. It's like that Kawhi-esque kind of thing, like
sure,
which I don't love. His game is obviously, he's a great player, but there's nothing. His game isn't the kind of game that I'm typically drawn to from like an eye kind of entertainment perspective. And yet, I think it's the contrarian in me that I kind of want to take Darren Peterson under my wing, because he's the guy that gets the knocks. It's the creatine thing. It's the weird year at Kansas. And we all agree that these three, you basically can't go wrong. Pick one of these guys. They're all going to be good. And yet, everything I hear about Peterson is negative and question marks and all these things. And I think just the contrarian in me again is, I'm going to take this guy under my wing. This is my guy. All you guys can hate on him. I'm kind of, I love all three of these guys. And I just want to make sure Peterson gets the right amount of love, because I think he's going to be a really good player. And the one thing that I can't figure out, and this is sort of I made this point last week on Thursday's show. I think he might actually have the highest floor of the top three. And we don't typically associate Darren Peterson with floor. We always talk about his ceiling. That guy is such a good shooter, such a good scorer, such an incredible athlete, if you believe that all the creatine weird stuff is behind him, which I do. But I don't. But all the reporting indicates that it's fine, and so I'll believe the reporting because I don't know anything. I think at worst, this guy's Ray Allen. Like, at worst, this guy's going to be a knockdown three-point shooter who gets a shot off against any defense. Okay. Sign me up. At best, the guy's the best player in the league. I really think, like, Peterson's ceiling is number one player MVP. That's his absolute ceiling. I'm like, that seems like a pretty great prospect. And one last thing, and I'll throw to you on your thoughts. The Peterson versus DeBansa thing I think is really interesting, because if you could have like mapped out a year that could go as well as possible, it would have looked like DeBansa's at BYU, other than like winning the championship would have been the only, or going deeper in the thing. But his stock was up here the whole time. Everybody loved it. It was great. Map out a season that could have gone worse, and it would have looked like Peterson's at Kansas, right? It was like the worst possible, and yet they're still head-to-head, according to a lot of people at the top of this draft. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take the track record for Peterson over the length of his like lifetime and not hold this one weird Bill Self year against him. I don't know. It sounds crazy, but I kind of think we're overlooking him a little bit.
I mean, you just laid out an excellent roadmap of why he's been undervalued. I talked about him a little bit. What I'll say to kind of close it on Peterson is, if he ends up in the pick and roll, actually running and manning an offense similar to a name who I've seen thrown around that's not pie in the sky. Like, if he becomes like Damian Lillard in the pick and roll, then I messed up. Then I messed up as an evaluator, and like he should have been the number one player in this class, because that's what will separate him. I love the Ray Allen comp. I love like the Bradley Beal types of comps. Like those are the things that I see for him early on in his career, which, young Ray Allen, Bradley Beal, when he was first finding his footing in Washington, when him and John Wall were getting it going, like those are exciting, explosive, and important players to actually winning games within an NBA offense. But if he becomes like a Dame Lillard type of ball handler, then I messed up. Then he should have been number one. So I don't fault anyone for having Peterson ahead of DeBansa and Boozer and whatever order you want to throw around for those guys.
Can I give you one of my other guys?
You sure can.
I love Kingston Flemings, man. I did a lot of work on that group of guards, like that big chunky group of guards. I love Brendan Barry's. He's not one of my guys because I feel like that's cheating, because he's like everybody's guy's guy. Everyone's guy. I love Brendan Barry's. I really like Kingston Flemings. Change of pace is unbelievable. He's so slippery, slithery with the ball. Just gets to everywhere he wants to go on the court. I understand the size limitations, all these things, but like I said, these are the guys I fall in love with. When I watch Flemings play, I see a guy who has great feel for the game, is going to get to his spots. I think he's underrated as a passer. I think he's going to be able to run pick and roll, snake the pick and roll, get guys on his hips. Like, he knows how to just do it. And I always fall in love with those guys. And obviously an awesome scorer. I think he's going to be able to get to the rim. When I watch him play, I love every second of it. I'm a big Kingston Flemings guy, and I think he might be my favorite of that group of guards. And, I think, Acuff, Wagler, like whoever goes 5'6", whatever, I think Flemings is awesome, and I would consider him there.
So I published on social yesterday, kind of a pre-mortem, like if I'm wrong, like who are the guys who I feel like would be wrong on my board? And Flemings was number 1 at the top of the list. I have him at 9. Like I have a top 10 grade on this guy. It's not like I'm low on him per se, but I might be too low in the sense of, to your point, Wes, he could be the best guard out of all of these elite options in this draft. And I think it's not something I would point to from a skill perspective. It's getting back to some of the things you started with about his attitude and his confidence and how he carries himself. He just projects to be a leader. The last time I felt the same way about a player was another guy who I was far too low on, and it was Tyrese Maxey coming out of Kentucky. Like if we're trying to parse through and pick who's the player who could make that Tyrese Maxey type of jump, in the sense of he's just a professional day to day. You can't get him out of the gym. He's a smart kid. He always knows what to say. He always knows how to act and play with other guys. Like, it probably would be Kingston Flemings. And so, like, all of the evaluators who have him at like 5 or 6 on their boards, I don't fault them for it at all. I have questions about, is he actually as good of a defender as he was billed to be coming out of college? Is he going to continue to be the type of 3-point shooter that he was, on more limited volume in college? The mechanics are kind of funky. He stands by it. He says it's going to work at the next level. We last heard that from Tyrese Halliburton. I think that's worked out pretty well for him. Like, I have questions that have led me to ranking some of those guys higher. But in terms of who he is as a person, which should be the biggest thing, in all honesty, that's driving my evaluation. I understand I'm not working for an NBA team, and I'm not having lunch and dinner and interviews with these guys like all days throughout the year. But when we get those intel nuggets, that stuff does matter to me. Yeah. And so I probably should have him higher on my board, which is why I already called out, like, if I'm going to be wrong somewhere, that's probably going to be one of the places where I ended up wrong, is this guy was just way more awesome and took leaps and bounds ahead of where I thought he could go as a player, because of just the type of person and the type of character that he has.
College success, as we know, doesn't necessarily dictate NBA success. There's been plenty of guys on bad college teams who had awesome NBA careers and won a lot of basketball games. But college success also doesn't not matter, right? It says something. And the fact that he was the number 1 option on that Houston team, that means a lot to me. Defensively, like, if you put him in a situation where he doesn't have to do as much offensively, then maybe he can be a little bit, maybe he could be pretty good defensively. Yeah. If he's, I love the Tyrese Maxey name there, because Maxey isn't like a great defender, but he tries hard.
Yep.
And if that's what Flemings is, that's great. I think that's all you really need to be if you're really elite at that spot, which I think he can be. I think the hair looks really cool. I think that has to matter somewhere in my evaluation. I really like him. And the one last thing I'll say on him, and this is more of like a big picture thing too. We look at guys who take so many mid-range shots, I think, and because we're all so analytically driven right now, we're like, well, I really wish he was taking more threes or getting to the rim a little bit more. I need to know that you're going to be able to get a shot off. If you're this size, I need to know that you're going to be able to get your shot off in the NBA. And if you have that mid-range part of your game where he's able to get to that elbow and get to that like Chris Paul type shot over and over and over again, I know at least I can get that from you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I know it may not be always the best shot, but it's a shot. And a lot of times in the NBA, it's just getting off a shot. And then again, because of his change of pace and all that stuff, I think he will be able to get to the rim and draw fouls eventually and get to all that stuff. Give me a name.
I'm going to go Merez Johnson.
Yes.
This is where I'm going to head next. Out of Michigan, 6'9" forward with a 7'3.5" wingspan, 250 plus pounds. This guy is built to play NBA defense, and not just NBA defense in the sense of, I'm going to help roam from the weak side, block some shots. I'm talking switch out on anybody and guard them straight up in one-on-one settings, including backcourt players. Like, when he had the chance to switch out onto a guard at Michigan, he was like licking his chops. Like, he loved it. Like, he loved just swallowing those guys up and preventing them getting to where they needed to go and deflecting their passes or even blocking a shot from deep. Like, he loved that stuff. And when we're talking about playing defense at an NBA level today, you have to be able to switch as much as possible. You have to be able to guard as many positions as possible. Those are the types of players that NBA teams are looking to find. And Merez Johnson fits that mold perfectly. I trust him to be the best defender in this class, unless Jaden Quaintance actually has a healthy career and is able to become the player that he was billed to be, last year at Arizona State. But I think barring that, I think Merez is the best defensive big man for my money in this class. And I think that has to matter significantly when we're looking to draft, inside the top 10 or the top 12. He might not have the offensive creative skill set that you want out of a forward, but I care about that a little less because I do feel like he can be a true big and play real minutes at the 5 and help not only, switch out in all these different places, but help protect the rim, defend in the post, block shots, all those fun things. I trust him to do it. He's a high level finisher. The motor always runs hot. He's a crazy competitor, above the rim finisher. And then I think the spot up 3-point shot is eventually going to get there for him. I think he's going to be able to hit catch and shoot threes at a decent clip, which helps to space the floor in other areas where he's not just running actions, slipping, diving to the paint, middle of the floor, all that kind of stuff. So I really like Mraz as this kind of do-it-all defensive forward who just helps my team get bigger, stronger, and more competitive when it matters most. Like all of those series that we watched in the playoffs this year, I could see Mraz on the court for all of them. I could just see him being a defensive hound, a workhorse, helping one of those teams win high-leverage playoff games in his minutes.
You just identified my favorite player in this entire draft. I freaking love this guy. I will watch this guy play defense every second of the day. So I grew up a Miami Heat fan. So there's obviously like the Alonzo Mourning defensive stuff there. But I'll tell you, two of my favorite players / teams. I grew up, I love those two early 2000s Pistons, and I love Kevin Garnett. Those are like people who just live to play defense. I freaking love those guys. Like they find so much joy on that end of the basketball as opposed to offense. And Morris Johnson is just cut from that cloth. Like that guy can't wait to get offense over with so he can get back and play defense. And I freaking love those guys. His physicality is, you're exactly right. Like I could see him playing in the NBA Finals tomorrow. Like he is that kind of guy. And what I love about him, obviously played for, a very good basketball team with a lot of talent, knew his role, never really tried to step outside of it. He's not going to be the best player in this draft. He might end up being one of the more impactful players in this draft.
He might not even be an all-star. Like he may very well never be an all-star.
Yeah, if you look like, hey, I need my next OG Anunoby, here you go. Like to me, that's sort of where he ends up. OG Anunoby is maybe like a fringe all-star, but Morris Johnson, if that 3-point shot really comes along, maybe he can kind of hit that.
Sure.
But yeah, he's gonna play this role at a super high level. He's never gonna step out of that role. And I think if you're a team that every team can use a guy like Morris Johnson, a guy who could, like you already laid out the whole scouting report. If you need that kind of Swiss Army knife on defense, which everybody does, I don't know how you not draft this guy. I think he's going to go higher than I think people think, because not all these guards are going to just go in a row. Somebody's going to quote unquote reach for a big, and I know that Ademara is one of the names that could go back. Maybe it's a Steinbach. Maybe somebody like. If I'm I'm going Morris Johnson at this point.
No, I think he's better than those guys. I have him ranked higher than those guys on my board because of the versatility in his game. The Ademara thing is very interesting. Like obviously we've seen him mocked as high as 8 to the Atlanta Hawks. You even had some preliminary Clippers at 5 buzz once we saw the lottery work. Like they just traded Zubats. Could they go after another true big to kind of fill in that spot in the rotation in their starting lineup? I want a player who I can trust to hold up over the course of a game for as many minutes as I need from him. I don't know if Ademara is going to play, 25 plus minutes a night in the NBA. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think that he is Zach Edey or Donovan Clingan at the next level. I think he can get there. There's that chance. I would just much rather bet on the athlete and the competitor that Morez Johnson is, the sure strengths that I know I'm getting out of him versus maybe more of the unknown in the mystery box with a Mara or a Steinbeck or one of those other bigs.
And then one other thing I like about Morez a lot is his ability to navigate the floor and just find ways to make an impact.
Yep.
Obviously played with Mara, who's going to draw a lot of attention in the post and is going to, there's going to be a lot of paint. There's going to be a lot of crowds in the paint if you're playing with him. And he just always found a way to get to the rim anyway. Just really did a nice job playing off these guys. Super high basketball IQ in terms of like these little passes and knowing where to cut, when to cut, all that stuff. That stuff translates 10 times out of 10. It never not translates. And so I love it. Great name. It's just a name. Like he's not going to be out of the league in 2 years. Not with a name like Morez Johnson. That's a guy who the broadcast keeps saying his name. Like that guy's just going to be in the league for a long time.
Lottery picks who are his size are usually making it to some kind of second contract at like bare minimum. Like those guys just find ways to stick around. Teams will always take chances on those guys. Like that's why if you're looking for players to draft higher versus lower, that's why a lot of people try to fade the guards as much as they possibly can and favor the bigger wings and the forwards who will tend to stick around and give you more quote unquote value in relation to their contract and how many years you're paying them.
My favorite sort of bit in evaluating players, I ask myself, does this guy do stuff or not? Morez Johnson's the ultimate do stuff guy. I want somebody that's
pretty important.
You got to do stuff. And you know what I'm talking about. Like, there's too many guys that kind of float and just like wait for the game to come. No. One of my least favorite things is I let the game come to me. Do not do that. If you let the game come to you, it's never going to show up. You got to do stuff in basketball. You got to force the action. You got to make things happen. Mo Johnson makes things happen. I'll give you one here. I'll go Allen Graves.
Okay.
Who I don't love as much as Morez Johnson or some of these other kind of guys. I'm very intrigued. Like, he's on the cusp of being a my guy, and I kind of want you to either talk me in or out on it. So, in general, I love this draft. I just don't see a ton of, like, 3-and-D wings that I feel awesome, like, just gonna hit. Like, there's no Mikal Bridges in this draft where you're like, no matter what, this guy's gonna be a good player. And he's one of the guys that could potentially be one of the, like, a 3-and-D wing. And if I'm in the, I am going 3-and-D wings more often than not. And when in doubt, I'm going a 3-and-D wing. And I've made this point before on the show, but I'll tell you, I just think worst case scenario is you could trade these guys for more assets later. Like every single year, you see Mikal Bridges, Desmond Bane, these guys who could play both sides and hit threes. They just end up being super valuable. And if you ever move them, you end up getting you get $2 on the cent, when you trade these guys out. And so at the very least, as an asset management play, I would go get these guys. And I just wonder if Allen Graves, who I like, right? I don't dislike him. I'm just a little bit like, okay, does this guy look like a 3-and-D guy or is he really a 3-and-D guy? One of the things I like about him is that the production is there. He's a connecting piece, right? I love like his ability to just be a cog in an offense. I think he's a very good passer. He does stuff defensively, right? Like his playmaking, steals, block stats, all that stuff are really good. Like that stuff is the stuff that to me at least that tends to translate. I just don't really know if he's going to be like, is this guy going to be 9th guy on the bench who's struggling to get minutes? Or is he going to end up being this just, I can't take this guy out of my starting lineup type of guy?
He has the makings of someone who should potentially go top 10 in a redraft. Like go look around on social media and there are some very smart scouts who I very much respect their opinions on and listen to them and read all their work. They have like top 10 grades right now on Allen Graves.
Okay.
There's some other scouts who are not nearly as complimentary of his game and have him like in the late 20s. I'm kind of in the middle. I have like a net neutral stance on him. I have him at 20 on my board. He is one of these guys who I try to talk myself into having maybe a little bit higher because I like the idea of Allen Graves, right? This 6'9", this physically ready forward who can come into the NBA. You can play him out of the post. He can make passing reads. He can shoot from the outside. He'll give you some rebounding presence. The defensive metrics were awesome. Then I go back and I watch the tape a little bit, Wes. And I don't necessarily think I think he's a good passer. I don't think he's a great passer. I think he's a decent ball handler. I don't think he's a good ball handler. Like a lot of his face-up drives that he tried to make in college, they almost always turn into a post-up. Like I don't think he can really get by guys or function from that perspective. So I do like his connectivity, like you mentioned. I think that he's a very smart player. I think he knows where to be and how to play the game. I think if I'm evaluating Graves, I think the three-point shot is the one thing that has to be there for him. Yeah. I think if the three-point shot isn't there for him, his offensive case becomes pretty murky pretty fast. However, the touch was good. I think that's one thing he consistently did all year for Santa Clara, whether he was coming off the bench or spot start minutes, whatever, was that he hit shots from the outside. I think where his detractors come in is that against good competition in college basketball, so like the top tier quad teams, he was not very good. His production dropped off. And then who really is he at the next level? What is his standout? Like, this is the one thing that gets him on the court, not just like the jack of all, master of none. Well, right. What's the one thing that gets him on the court? But if we're putting together guys who project to play a long time in the NBA, to your point, that's exactly the type of forward that I could see a lot of teams banking on. Like, I don't know if this is a hot take prediction. I don't know where this is coming out of, but this is just my gut feeling as we head into the draft. I think the Thunder are going to take him in some capacity. He feels so much like an OKC Thunder player.
Yeah.
Like it would be a stunner for a lot of people. It would not shock me if that's who they take at 12. Like if the Thunder did not make another trade to move up or down in this draft, they stuck there at 12, they made a pick. It would not shock me to see them take Graves, because I'm not entirely sure that he's going to be there for their other pick at 17 again if they stick and pick in those two spots. Like I could see Presti doing something like that out of left field on draft night. I certainly think these other teams like the Hornets, for example, who have multiple first-round picks, maybe even like a Toronto at 19. I think his floor is San Antonio at 20. I think if he actually got to San Antonio, he'd be a very interesting proposition for them. But I just feel like, to your point, I think he's going to go a lot earlier than people think.
Yeah, so, you think about these 3-and-D wings type of guys, like, the guys like Graves who can play a little 3-4, whatever it's going to be. And you're like, well, we just don't want to miss out on the next, OG Anunoby or Aaron Gordon or whatever it might be, right?
Sure.
But then sometimes we do a little bit too much work squinting with these guys, and we end up with drafting Ochai Agbaji or Isaac Okoro a little bit too high, and these guys that don't work out. What you said about, like, what does he do at an elite level, I think is the most important point here, right? Because this guy might end up being like a Haywood Highsmith type, right? Where good rotation player, but like only allowed to dribble once or twice, doesn't really make an impact. Now, if I'm going to make the argument for Graves, I would say, like, yeah, at the toughest moments, he wasn't as productive as you wanted at Santa Clara, but like in the NBA, if he's asked to just slide into a role, does he almost like play better in that role as opposed to having to do... The NBA might be a better spot for him because he's going to be asked to do less, and in doing less, he can kind of scale up the things that he does at a higher level, and all of a sudden maybe he does look at like an elite role player. But yeah, you and I seem to be on the same page with him. It's like one of us has to talk each other into in or out on Allen Graves, and I can't figure it out because I'm with you. I watch him and I'm just like, I just be better at one thing. If I could just, and I would feel so much better about it. But then again, that's why I think he's an interesting prospect.
You like guys who are high feel, good processors. They know where to be. Even if I don't always love how it happened, he made a lot of things happen at Santa Clara.
Yes.
And so that, given his age, where he's at, his tools, that's going to get an NBA team to buy in like we're talking about a lot sooner than people think.
Give me one more.
I will go Christian Anderson at Texas Tech.
Okay.
I've been riding high with this guy this entire draft cycle. He's very rarely been outside of the lottery on my board. I have him at about 12, 13 on my last big board. He checks all the boxes I want out of a guard who I think has all-star upside. He is an unbelievable pull-up shooter. Unbelievable. I think he's the best shooter in this entire draft class. When we're talking about how to manipulate ball screen offense, how to use his eyes to throw defenders off and be able to actually pass with either hand and make all the different types of passes you need to out of pick and roll. Someone who excelled at a high level doing that in college across multiple seasons. He checks those boxes for me. That intersection of being able to hit a shot from anywhere on the floor, being able to make plays for others, play that floor general type of role, man in offense versus just score first, me. I think that's very important when we're projecting forward to the next level. And then the other thing that I really like about him that goes under discussed, everyone thinks he's just going to be this target on defense, that they're just going to immediately just pick on him, and he's going to be a net negative by default because he's about 6'2" in shoes. He's got a 6'6.5" wingspan. He competes on defense, Wes. Like, I never find him out of position. I never find him unaware of where he needs to be and what he needs to do, even if a bigger player is switched onto him. Like, I never have questions about what he's going to do in terms of what he needs to do on defense. Obviously, there's going to be 6'9", 6'10" guys in the NBA who can get him on a ball screen, get switched onto him. Like, they'll just score over him. Like, that's going to happen to a lot of these guards, to be entirely honest with you. But I worry about guys who don't know where they need to be on defense. I don't have those questions with him. So dribble, pass, shoot. Don't kill me on defense. He checks all of those boxes for me. I get the concerns about how often does he touch the paint without a ball screen? Can he put pressure on the rim? I get all those things. I think he's more athletic than given credit for. I think he's proven that in team workouts. I think he proved that at the combine with all their drills and testing. And at the rim finishing, he's, for the most part in his career, he's actually been pretty good at doing it. Like, I've seen him finish over the trees. I've seen him get into those pull-ups around the painted area or along the baseline. He can hit those shots over defenders closing out on him. I just trust him to become the best version of himself. And that's a player who I just really want to bet on at that lead guard spot. I think if everything breaks right for him, he can be a real mold breaker in this league and an all-star caliber player.
So I've heard you talk about Christian Anderson in such glowing terms as you just did. And I stole him from you as one of my guys also. I
love that.
You sold me. You sold me on this guy.
It.
So I took a second look at him. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, this guy's really good. Did a little bit of background on him, a couple Google searches. I love that he played in Germany. I love that his dad was a pro baller. When you talk about defensively, yep, he knows how to play basketball. He's played professionally. It's in the family. That stuff just works, man. Like every time. Like you play in Europe a little bit where it's just like a different kind of level of basketball. You come in a little bit more serious than everybody else. And then when you watch him, like he has a seriousness about his game. Like he knows what he's doing, right? He knows how to use that three-point gravity. He's not out there just chucking shots. He's using his strengths, to his advantage and to his team's advantage, right? He's making his teammates better with his gravity and all these things. To me, the swing skill with him is the floater for all the reasons you said. Like,
sure,
not even he is going to be what he is defensively. If he competes, great. But he's, you're going to shoot over him if you're bigger than him.
I will say there's been some buzz for who your Heat could target at number 13. Like, there's reason why his name comes up. He's one of the most well-conditioned players in this entire draft. That kid was playing 39 minutes a night at Texas Tech. Rarely ever came off the floor and had the ball in his hands all the time, was running with screens, running off screens, getting back in transition on defense. Like, he is as well-conditioned an athlete as you're going to find at that position. And I love that you brought up a lot of the background with him. I've had a bunch of conversations with his dad over the years. That's an awesome family. They're very professional. They know what they're doing. He's been raising both of his sons. They got another one coming in Lukai in a few years. They know what they're doing in terms of getting these boys ready to play pro ball. And he's going to be one of the faces of Germany basketball for years to come. Like that I'm very, very confident in.
Oh, interesting.
He is the real deal. Dennis Schroeder's already kind of handed him the keys to that team when he chooses to retire. Like it's gonna be the Wagners. It's gonna be Christian Anderson, Hans Steinbach, maybe like a Jack Cahill coming down the road. He's another guy who you can find in the second round of this draft. Like this kid's a real deal talent, Wes. Like I'm not just backing him because, I like the family or I like the kid or whatever the case may be. Like I've told them 1,000 times, I believe in their son. I believe he's going to be a very special talent, a special prospect in this league.
That point you bring up about the international ball continuing, right? Because like I did the thing where I'm like, oh, I love that he played. No, this guy's going to keep playing professional basketball. That's eat, breathe, live basketball at the highest level every single year. Whenever there's, the World Cups or the Olympics or something, if he's going to be involved in that, I feel really great if I'm drafting him. I'm like, oh, this guy's just going to be basketballing all the time. And that's what I want out of my guys. The Heat, that's an interesting point. If he can get that floater off, man, like if he's going to be able to get that off the NBA level, I don't even care if he's getting to the rim. If that three is what it is, and he's got that floater, that's all I need.
He's an unbelievable snake the ball screen, get to a pull-up shot guy too. Yep.
I'm all in. Nathan Grubel, thanks so much for coming on. You can check out his work over at No Ceilings. Check out the podcast. Check out the NBA draft guide that they do there. Terrific job as always. You put a lot of work into this draft, man. Enjoy it on Tuesday night.
Thank you so much, Wes. Everyone, appreciate all the support that we've gotten this year. If you haven't gotten a copy of the draft guide yet, there's still time before the draft. Go read up 100+ profiles on all these guys you're going to hear on draft night. Thanks for having me.
Yep.